Welcome to another wonderful day of reading and studying the Book of Mormon with me, a lifetime member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. If you're interested in learning more about this book, I invite you to join me and read this book from cover to cover as I'm doing right now, supplying my own just off-the-cuff commentary as a regular member. Now, I don't necessarily have any huge, tremendous, professional level insights. I just have insights from my own life as a member, and I want to share that with you if you would like to walk along in this journey with me. Now, today we are in Alma Chapter 4. I love the Book of Alma in the Book of Mormon, and I'm so excited to be reading this entire Book of Mormon, but specifically the Book of Alma within this book right now. And this chapter is great because it talks about a very important topic in our day, and that is pride. Pride sucks the spiritual power out of our lives, and it is a huge danger. If we are not humble, if we are not even compelled to be humble because we're poor and struggling and having major problems, if life is going good, then one of the worst things we can possibly do is forget God and get prideful, or get judgmental and self-righteous. And this chapter talks about the dangers of pride, focusing on material wealth and ease. So let's go ahead and get started with this wonderful chapter, because there's been so many different things happening in the Book of Alma and just before that in the Book of Mosiah, with this poor society of the Nephites just struggling with one thing after another. But today it's a brand new thing, and that is pride that is hitting them. They've had struggles with war, they've had struggles with people leaving the church and different things, but today it's specifically pride. So let's see how it affects the people of Alma, or the people of the Nephites, same thing. All right, chapter 4, Alma baptizes thousands of converts. This is just the little summary. And iniquity enters the church, and the church's progress is hindered. Nephiha is appointed chief judge, and Alma as high priest devotes himself to the ministry. And of course, we will find out what that all is about now. Verse 1, now it came to pass in the 6th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi, there were no contentions nor wars in the land of Zarahemla. Well, that's wonderful, because the last couple of chapters have been full of war, so thank you. It's kind of relaxed for a minute. But the people were afflicted, yea, greatly afflicted, for the loss of their brethren, and also for the loss of their flocks and herds, and also for the loss of their fields of grain, which were trodden underfoot and destroyed by the Lamanites. And so great were their afflictions that every soul had cause to mourn, and they believed that it was the judgments of God sent upon them, because of their wickedness and their abominations. Therefore they were awakened to a remembrance of their duty. And they began to establish the church more fully. Yea, and many were baptized in the waters of Sidon, and were joined to the church of God. Yea, they were baptized by the hand of Alma, who had been consecrated the high priest over the people of the church, by the hand of his father Alma. And it came to pass in the 7th year of the reign of the judges, there were about 3,500 souls that united themselves to the church of God and were baptized. And thus ended the 7th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi, and there was continual peace in all that time. So we're actually having a peaceful moment here. The first couple of years of the reign of the judges were some problems, and the next couple of years there were more problems, and now they're actually having a little bit of peace. And this because the people are humble. They're realizing, wait a minute, all the trouble we've been through, we think this is the judgment of God. We need to turn and commit ourselves to God. And this is great. Sometimes the problems in our lives get us to stop and reflect and be like, what really matters here? And I think that's wonderful. I think that's one of the things that God allows to happen in our lives, is that we can have troubles that will lead us back to Him. Not that He specifically causes those things to happen, because they're going to happen. We live in a broken world. But He certainly makes use of it when our hearts are softened and beat up by the trials of life. So these people are having a moment where they've softened and they're turning to God. So this is wonderful. But unfortunately, it does not last. It is just a true thing about our lives. When we're humble and we seek after God, then we're blessed, and then we get complacent. So that is about to happen. Let's see it unfold. Verse 5, it came to pass in the 7th year of the reign of the judges that there were about 3,500 souls that united themselves to the church of God and were baptized. And thus ended the 7th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi. And there was continual peace in all that time. And it came to pass in the 8th year of the reign of the judges that the people of the church began to wax proud because of their exceeding riches and their fine silks and their fine twined linen, and because of their many flocks and herds and their gold and their silver and all manner of precious things which they had obtained by their industry. And in all these things they were lifted up in the pride of their eyes, for they began to wear very costly apparel. Now, this didn't take very long, did it? That just post-war, they were somewhat impoverished. Their flocks and the herds were diminished. Their fields were trampled, and they turned to God. And then, of course, what usually pairs along with God is hard work and diligence and effort and honesty, right? And because of this, now they have some abundance. This next harvest has been great. All the workings of cloth and fabric and clothing has been successful. They're getting ore out of the ground. They're making a comfortable life for themselves in not very long of a time. And unfortunately, it's numbing them spiritually. Verse 7, now this was the cause of much affliction to Alma, yea, and to many of the people whom Alma had consecrated to be teachers and priests and elders over the church. Yea, many of them were sorely grieved for the wickedness which they saw had begun to be among their people. For they saw and beheld with great sorrow that the people of the church began to be lifted up in the pride of their eyes, and to set their hearts upon riches and upon the vain things of the world. And they began to be scornful one towards another, and they began to persecute those that did not believe according to their own will and pleasure. Now, I have to just break in here and say, this is human nature at play here. We are not naturally consistently humble or aware of our behaviors. If we leave to our own devices, we can quickly become complacent, and it is natural for the mind to turn judgmental and to start ranking and ordering who's above and who's below. This is the natural man at work. So this requires every day diligent effort to ask God to give us that new heart, to remind ourselves to be humble, to focus on the most important things, to be grateful for what we have, and especially when we're in times of abundance, to think, if it weren't for God's goodness, I wouldn't have this. And also, who can I share with? To be aware of yourself, to check yourself. This is not easy, but part of the reason that, one of the things of many that I love about the Book of Mormon, and part of the reason it's so powerful in this day, is that it warns again and again against the dangers of that, what we call the pride cycle. You are compelled to be humble because your circumstances are horrible, and then you start working hard and honoring God, and then He blesses you. And then you get proud and lazy, and then you have afflictions, and then you call upon God again, right? It's this cycle that's actually really destructive because it wastes so much energy. If you just remember to be humble and grateful, intentionally thanking God and looking out for the welfare of others, then you can quit the up and down of the pride cycle. But all right, I digress. Let's move on to verse 9. Thus, in the 8th year of the reign of the judges, there began to be great contentions among the people of the church. Yea, there were envyings and strifes and malice and persecutions and pride, even to exceed the pride of those who did not belong to the church of God. Now, this is really a problem. The people in the church are becoming more arrogant and rude than the people outside the church. And in previous chapters, there were people outside of the church that were being really mean. But now we've got, hey, if someone leaves the church and does that, it's kind of like that's their journey. But if someone in the church does that, hold up, what are we doing? We're trying to worship Jesus Christ. We should be the last people to do that, right? So this is not good that church members are becoming prideful and arrogant. And thus ended the 8th year of the reign of the judges, and the wickedness of the church was a great stumbling block to those who did not belong to the church, and thus the church began to fail in its progress. And that's something that, in our day is a struggle. There's a huge variety of church members within our Latter-day Saint faith, and many of them are very, very hardworking, honest, wholesome, excellent people. And there are, within any church or organization, some that are not adhering to the beliefs properly, they are causing problems for others because of the way they behave, the way they treat other people. And again, unfortunately, that exists in our church, and it does in every church, but it shouldn't be that way, right? Like we would hope we'd be in a little bit better place. But again, it is a human condition. It's for us to check ourselves and remind ourselves to put Christ first and to actually live as he has asked us to live. All right, it came to pass in the commencement of the 9th year, Alma saw the wickedness of the church, and he also saw the example of the church, began to lead those who were unbelievers on from one piece of iniquity to another, thus bringing on the destruction of the people. Yea, he saw great inequality among the people. He saw some lifting themselves up in pride, despising others, turning their backs upon the needy and the naked, and those who were hungry, and those who were athirst, and those who were sick and afflicted. Now this was a great cause for lamentation among the people, while others were abasing themselves, succoring those who stood in need of their succor, such as imparting their substance to the poor and needy, feeding the hungry, and suffering all manner of afflictions for Christ's sake, who should come according to the spirit of prophecy, looking forward to the day, thus retaining a remission of their sins, being filled with great joy because of the resurrection of the dead, according to the will and power and deliverance of Jesus Christ from the bands of death. So Alma's seeing two basic subgroups within the church, some that are more wicked than people that are outside of the church. They're not giving to the poor. They're being so rude, so mean, that they're actually, it says a couple of verses ago, leading people from one iniquity to another. They're actually leading out in destructive, wicked behaviors. Like, that's so shameful. And then, of course, there were some as well that were bearing any affliction, patiently giving to the poor, that were really towing the line and being good Christians. So Alma, I'm sure, is so sad to see this. It came to pass that Alma, having seen the afflictions of the humble followers of God and the persecutions which were heaped upon them by the remainder of his people, and seeing all their inequality, began to be very sorrowful. Nevertheless, the Spirit of the Lord did not fail him. Now, I love that verse. Isn't that a beautiful verse? He is sorrowful, but the Spirit of the Lord did not fail him. And I think that really points to this true principle that we can get so swallowed up in our sorrow, our depression, our sadness, that the Spirit of the Lord can fail us, because we can push the Spirit of the Lord away in the depths of our despair. We can refuse to be comforted. We can be so sad that it's like it limits the Spirit's access to us. And I love how it points out that as sad as he was, the Spirit of the Lord did not fail him. So he was able to be comforted. He was able to receive revelation. He was able to move through this with awareness rather than become completely swallowed up in that. And I think that's a good reminder for all of us in our emotions, whether it's sad, anxious, scared, any of those upset, angry feelings, that we can feel that, but just not to let it carry us away so that we can't hear the Spirit of God. Because if we can't hear the Spirit, we won't get comfort, we won't get direction, and we'll be stuck. So it's okay to feel it, but keep that access to the Spirit, as in don't get swallowed up in it that carries you away. Okay, verse 16. He selected a wise man who was among the elders of the church, and gave him power according to the voice of the people, that he might have power to enact laws according to the laws which had been given, and put them in force according to the wickedness and crimes of the people. So he is choosing somebody to regulate legal affairs. Now this man's name was Nephites, and he was appointed chief judge, and he sat in the judgment seat to judge and govern the people. Now Alma did not grant unto him the office of being high priest over the church, but he retained the office of high priest unto himself, but he delivered the judgment seat unto Nephites. So previously he had held the two highest positions in the land, chief judge and also high priest. But it's getting to be a bit much considering how much is going on with the people. So he's splitting things up. Someone else can take over being a chief judge. He's going to go focus on being a high priest, which seems like a really good idea, since the people need more admonishment in their spiritual lives, clearly. Verse 19, and this he did, that he himself might go forth among the people, or among the people of Nephi, that he might preach the word of God unto them, to stir them up in remembrance of their duty, that he might pull down by the word of God all the pride and craftiness and all the contentions which were among his people, seeing no way that he might reclaim them, save it were in bearing down in pure testimony against them. And thus, in the commencement of the 9th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi, Alma delivered up the judgment seat to Nephihah, and confined himself wholly to the high priesthood of the holy order of God, to the testimony of the word, according to the spirit of revelation and prophecy. And that is the end of the chapter. And of course, this is in the days before printing presses or telephones or even telegraphs or anything like that, let alone the internet. If he wanted to spread a message out among the people of, let's say, retrenchment, return to God, humble yourselves, he was going to have to go out and spread that message himself, which he did. He starts a traveling campaign going from city to city, which we'll see more of with interesting mixed success. But we will talk more about that next time, and I look forward to seeing you in the next chapter.